Hello, Virginia Lacrosse Network. I am Wyatt Christopher. I'm a graduate of the 2012 men's lacrosse program at the University of Virginia. I'm a member of the 2011 National Championship team. I am the director of the Virginia Lacrosse Network, and now the host of the Virginia Lacrosse Network podcast. We are so excited to launch this podcast in our continued efforts to bring together this amazing group of alumni to learn about where they are, what they're doing, and the lessons they've learned through the game of lacrosse. We have a great group of alumni that we're going to be interviewing on a monthly basis, so we're excited for you to learn, tune in, and as always, go Who's and Wah Who Wah. All right, I do want to keep introducing you as Coach Myers, but I'm going to start with saying, Julie, thank you for joining the Virginia Lacrosse Network podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. And a lot of people still call me coach, so it's all good.
Yeah, I think it's my Harlem lacrosse days. I still have boys calling me saying, "Coach, coach." I'm like, "Oh yeah, talking to me." I think once you're a coach, you're always a coach.
I would totally agree. Totally agree.
Well, thank you for your time and excited to see you in Charlottesville this weekend. I think I wanted to start with obviously emailing you back and forth a couple weeks. You're definitely busy. You're definitely traveling a lot. You're definitely on the move. So I'd love a opportunity for a clean start for anyone that I'm sure has heard what you're doing, but would love to hear more. Where are you? What's going on? How's life? And what's keeping you busy right now?
Gosh, I don't even know where to start. Life as a CEO is pretty exciting. I would say everything that I learned as a head coach has come with me as a CEO. So I think that was probably my first refreshing part was all my 31 years as being a coach at Virginia and then 28 as the head coach. All of those skills, all of those scenarios, all of those conversations really helped me get started as a CEO. So I'm about 19 months into this next journey. I have missed lacrosse a lot and missed coaching, but what I have gained by walking away has exceeded my expectations. So, second opportunity of a lifetime to lead the One Love Foundation, which is obviously near and dear to my heart. As Yardley's college coach, I was one of the first people to get the phone call the morning that we lost her. So, as a day one person and part of the journey of recovery, not just for myself and my family and team, but staying connected to the loves, it's been an incredible opportunity for me to sit in the seat I sit in now and to share all of the things that we've learned, all of the things that we had no idea about, leading up to May 3rd, 2010, where we're really in a position that we can educate a lot of youth, a lot of 11 to 24-year-olds in particular, talking to college teams and high school teams as well of things that we didn't know, things that not to scare anyone, but just to raise awareness of the prevalence of abuse in relationships. Let people know kind of what the behaviors are, what the warning signs are. So where I sit now, I feel like I have a chance to save the next coach and team from the most profound loss you could ever imagine. So it's all good. I'm super busy. I travel a lot. I have all kinds of great meetings. I've done different podcasts and had really opportunities that are new and that have been really fun and really important, I think. So I'm
Yeah,
busy, but it's good.
yeah. Thank you. And I guess quick hitters would just be what do you miss most about coaching? And the back half on the other side was what's been your biggest kind of learning curve or experience now being even though you did a great job articulating, you're still a CEO as a coach, but it's a different entity now, a different opportunity. So what do you miss most about coaching? What have you learned or your biggest learning curve as a CEO?
I mean, it's a really long list of what I miss most about coaching. I miss the Virginia girls. I miss their families that they come from. I miss the camaraderie with the men's team and that office environment. I miss being outside. I love our sport, and as I still watch all of the games, certainly more of the men's games now because my sons are playing. Than the and I get a chance to watch the women play live this weekend, which I'm really excited about. But I miss breaking down the game. I miss working on weaknesses and trying to highlight some of our strengths. So I still watch the game as a coach with angles and lines and decisions as opposed to as a parent. But I mean I just miss that age group. I miss that the amazing opportunity to compete with your best friends and to play a sport that everyone loves and to represent a university that we're all proud of. Those are the things that I miss. Um, what I've loved about leaving is how much I've gotten to learn on the outside. There is a vibrant life on the outside of coaching. It is such a, you're just so obsessed, and you really don't come up for air very often. And I would say I don't come up for air that often here, but I do get to travel differently. I've Ubered for the first time. I had always had people that use their own app. I don't have to count to 34 before I leave an airport because I'll know that I don't have 34 teammates or players with me anymore. So I feel like I've grown up in a lot of ways, and just been able to go to different cities and to meet different people and to have certainly conversations about Virginia always comes up. The team will always come up. Special moments will always be, people will always say like, "What was the best part?" But I've just been able to take my story and my experiences and my amazing opportunities with me everywhere I go, and I've met some really incredible people along the way. Virginia continues to be a huge core of the world that I swim in. I was out in Houston and I met 6 or 7 different Wahoos that are, in their 70s that I would never have met if I wasn't sitting in these seats, and even if I had just gone to the game as a fan, I would never have met them. So, it's been fun to see Virginia really kind of carry the foundation pretty far, and to see that the university is still, especially with our lacrosse families, still alive and well, and still really motoring the work that we do.
Yep. Yep. And what do you think from a CEO perspective? What have been the fun challenges that you've had to work through? Because a lot of people that are going to be listening to this are leaders and CEOs. I'm sure they love your perspective on how you're kind of viewing this, kind of coming from a fresh perspective.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, as a coach, you always had a game plan. You always kind of measured out your games, your season, what systems you wanted to put in place. I think as a CEO coming into a really pretty well oiled machine, right now our biggest project is like what are our sustainable structures, so that no matter who comes next, the foundation has structures in place where we can scale for growth. Not necessarily adding teammates to it, but really making sure that we can reach more and more students. At the end of the day, our mission and our goal is to end relationship abuse, through prevention education. And to do that, we have to reach millions of kids over time. Um, so really trying to scale our structures so that there are some flywheels there, and so there's some logic behind all of it, and one decision stacks and impacts the next. I think again, it's a well-oiled machine, but it was a really big machine and a lot of redundancies. So it's my chance to have a fresh slate of now knowing about 18, 19 months worth of the foundation, and really trying to enhance it in ways that it makes sense for our team.
Yeah. So many I could talk all day, but keep it. I do have a structure, but I do want to ask, just because you bring up the coaching thing, it'd be interesting. I know personally, I'm coaching high school lacrosse, and I go out to the field and I'm outside coaching. You're like, man, this is very special. Like it's tough to beat, right? But I know a lot of my friends, my classmates from UVA on the men's and women's side are coaching in some capacity. You obviously are one of the true legends in the game on the field, coaching and playing. Um, I'm curious, I guess, what would be your advice for coaches now that you've kind of have a different perspective that are, because I think from my assessment, coaches are pound for pound one of the most important role models in society. We need them more than ever before to lean into youth, because youth feel like they're just stretched so thin, and we really need more foundational pieces in their lives. So I guess what would be your fresh advice on people that are leaning into coaching in different capacities? How would you have a conversation with them about the work they're doing?
Yeah, I would say, and you said a lot of it, like the fundamentals, I would focus on the smallest, the most simplest pieces of the game, so that it's just like my structure at work, so that it's scalable. If you have good details with your stick work, with your footwork, with the lines you attack on, with the shots you're trying to create, with how you defend, the angles you're keeping as a goalkeeper, just keeping it really simple and detail oriented will be important. But I would also say don't add your stress to the players. So often we think, I always think like little things make a huge difference, but if we strangle a little thing because we're annoyed by it, we're really not even letting the next good thing happen. So really trying to keep it in the moment. Remember that these are young kids, and that we may have years and years of experience that we're bringing in. They're still building their experience bank, so we can't put our pressure on the players, to really just try to encourage and to support. Certainly correct them when you need to,
Yeah,
but they're developing, and we have to give them a longer leash to be able to develop. I think sometimes you have to remember that doing less can actually give you a little bit more,
yeah,
so that you're not grinding them and exhausting them, in the moment and whatnot. So I would say keep it simple, make it fun. I think everybody always says, make it fun. And not everything that we do is fun. And I think that's the other reminder of life and of coaching is we're all gonna do things that we don't necessarily want to have to do, but we just need to trust that it's going to get us to where we want to be. So make it fun when you can, but acknowledge that it's not all roses. and to kind of get in the trenches with the kids and acknowledge the hard time, but then help them redirect and look forward to the good times ahead.
Yeah, it sounds like someone that's done it before, and that's where I do want to segue next because just reading more of your bio and getting to know you more. I mean, what an unbelievable journey you have been on and we're on with lacrosse and Virginia lacrosse from a player to assistant coach to coach. And I'm sure for you, you look back and I'm sure it's like, I can't believe that was your journey in your life. It just is unbelievable. With a lot of, I'm sure, ups and downs, obviously, but I'd love for you to kind of just to take us back to kind of the original roots of getting familiar with UVA and the university and the women's program. I know field hockey was a big
Yep.
part of your life back then, which is funny because it now you're just Julie Myers from lacrosse, but I'm sure it meant a lot to you then. So would love for you to take everyone back to kind of your roots with Virginia, kind of when you first started falling in love with the university and kind of how that turned into such an amazing special career that you established there.
Yeah, I mean, dumb luck, I would say, was the most it was how I found Virginia. I think, so I'm the 3rd oldest of 7 kids, and we're all inside of 10 years. So when Jimmy and Jeannie took their college visits, we all came along. So Jimmy and Jeannie are my older brother and sister. I remember, the sidewalks at UVA. I remember the herringbone brick, and I'm like, "Oh, those are pretty cool." I remembered the lawn. Um, I know my brother Jimmy didn't apply, my sister Jeannie did. Jeannie is perfect, like, she's a doctor, she's smart, everyone loves her, she's beautiful, da, 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 and she didn't get in. And I'm like, "Oh, wait, I can do something." The one and only thing that I could do that my sister could always do everything better. Like, so I was intrigued by that. I think, when it became my turn to look at schools, again, the sidewalks, we had just come from Busch Gardens, so that was like a really fun weekend too. I mean, I
Yep,
was a little kid. Uh,
yep,
so I love that, and then again, I mean, not Jeannie not getting in was definitely played in, so I don't know how public this is gonna get, this podcast,
yeah,
but really, she was perfect, and I had a chance to go to Penn State to play field hockey and lacrosse, and Gene Miller, the head coach at the time, had called out of the blue and said, "Hey, would you ever wanna come to Virginia?" And I'm like, "Actually, I've always wanted to go to Virginia, really because of the sidewalk, the Busch Gardens was close by, and my sister." I said, "But I haven't applied yet." And she's like, "Well, that's actually great because this is now spring of my senior year." She's like, "Well, that's great. If you haven't applied, then I can definitely still get you in." Because I hadn't been rejected yet. So I'm like, "Well, that's pretty lucky." So anyway, I ended up not going to Penn State. I hung up the phone after one call with Gene. And I told my mom I was going to actually go to Virginia. And she said the same thing, "But you haven't even applied." And I said, "But apparently that's the best news because now I can apply and they'll take it late and da da da." Um, so fast forward to then I'm coming down for field hockey, and I'm passing like, Culpeper and they're selling cattle. And the further from Philadelphia I get, the more and more remote it feels. And remember, I'd come up from Busch Gardens, like Williamsburg. So I had passed Richmond, I had passed a couple of other things. So now I'm starting to cry. I'm like, where is Charlottesville exactly? Because like, it's a lot of farms, and it was not nearly as built up. This is the fall of '86.
yeah,
So I remember getting more and more nervous, and then getting dropped off, and I'm like, "Oh, geez." But I had a team. I got dropped off, I moved into the dorms, and then within a couple of hours, I was sitting with the team, and I remember feeling like, "Well, I may be in the middle of nowhere, but at least I have these teammates and we have 10 days of preseason before we open our season." So I was very quickly distracted, and really enjoyed it. Most of my teammates played both sports, so it sounds exceptional now, but it was
yeah,
really the norm at the time. Literally, we wore the same uniforms, the same shoes, the same kilts and tops and buttons and all that. It was just a different stick that we got to hold.
yeah,
In the spring. So it was really fun. I would say what I loved most was the people. I was definitely overwhelmed a little bit by the size of Virginia, which by the way was much smaller then than it is now.
yeah,
But I fell in love with it because I love my people. I loved my opportunity. I loved that we got to travel and play sports that we really enjoyed, that my team was really good at. So, my by my 5th year, we won a national championship, and it was very, very little to do with me being there as a 5th year. It was much more about what everybody else brought, and of course, the coaches were great. So, yeah, it just kinda changed all my opportunities coming, playing both sports, ending my last game on a national championship win,
yeah,
really kinda catapulted me and set me up for what was to come next, which, of course, was being a grad assistant, then a full-time assistant, and then at 26, being a head coach. So I went up through the ranks. Again, it sounds exceptional now. I don't know that it would happen in today's world, but then it wasn't that unusual. my teammate Jenny Slingloff, Jenny Levy now at Carolina, had a very similar experience. So we were a bunch of us were able to rise pretty quickly. Timing was everything for a lot of us back in the early '90s.
And was it coaching always for you? Like, did you know right away that
Yeah.
tell me that, and then was there a moment in your career, was it in high school or college that you started being like, I really want to be a coach? When were you like, this is because I feel like it's such a blessing to know, this is exactly what I want to do. And that seemed like based off what you just said and what I've read about that, it was pretty much that was the path.
That I would say that was the path. Again, I was the number 3 of 7 kids, and I was always the one that wanted to be on a team and playing a sport and running the show. Like, I was probably pretty scratchy and really annoying to most people, but I just wanted to compete and I wanted to be on teams. In middle school, I went to a private school that didn't have many girls, so I was on a lot of the guys' teams, and I'm like, "This is gonna run its course really quick." So I switched out of my private middle school and went to, a public high school because I just needed girls to be on a team with. I knew I would say in high school that I wanted to do something in sports. I didn't know if ESPN wasn't really a thing quite yet. But I knew I didn't wanna sell sneakers, so, like, that wasn't close enough to sports. I really wanted to be on a field, and competing as long as I could. I would say ending on a win was pretty helpful. I had always dabbled between, wanting to be a doctor or doing something in medicine, which I pretend to be a doctor all the time, or staying on a field and coaching. So, again, timing was everything. To win my last game as a grad student, to having an opportunity to be a grad assistant after just living in California for 1 year shortly thereafter. Again, and then my full time assistant coach, who was amazing, ends up leaving after like 14 years at Virginia, and I was in the grad spot under her. So then I got that opportunity, and then Jane 2 years later, she's like, "I'm gonna go full-time administration." So again, I got that opportunity. I could not have been luckier, but I have, yeah, I couldn't have been luckier, and I always, always, always had amazing people around me that helped me find and create some success.
Yeah. Right place, right time, and just loving what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, being in Charlottesville it's a tough place not to want to be in. I can't wait to be there this weekend for the women's alumni and big doubleheader. But when you're in Charlottesville around the game of lacrosse, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And still, when I walk up to Klockner, even like in the last 2 seasons, like my blood still pumps.
Yeah.
It's still, I'm like, all right, here we go. It is weird to turn right as I come up the stairs to go to the hill as opposed to turning left and getting on the field.
Yeah.
The women's games, I tend to stand because I never really sat down for a Virginia women's game.
Yeah.
Guys games, I can be a parent in the stands and I can sit for them. But it is, my blood still pumps and it will always be, I feel like where I grew up, to be honest with you. I mean, I was such a young kid coming to Charlottesville, and now I'm not as young. But what I've learned and what I've gained from Virginia and from that opportunity and the experiences and the families and the players, it's priceless. It's been amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, pulling this out of the weeds a little bit, how do you assess your career and the impact you have on so many people? I think one of the things I love most of thinking about with UVA and coaches and getting recruited there was like you guys are sitting in a room as a coaching staff and you've got a name of people and you're dictating the rest of their lives like in every capacity, right? Like you get them, they go to UVA, their life goes, and everyone takes their own path, but you do have so much impact on someone's life, and you were able to have so many young ladies go through your program that you're able to make. How do you Have you sat down and thought about that? Can you process that, or is it just kind of like it all happened and it's just
Yeah,
amazing journey?
I would say, gosh, first of all, I do think a coach's magnitude is huge. I never really felt the weight of it though as a coach. I just felt like I think becoming a mom probably helped me a little bit just to realize that this player is somebody else's daughter who is going to have totally different juggles and struggles in life and successes and whatnot. And I would say that I would acknowledge I was a small part of their young adult life. But certainly there's a lot of other influences and other people that are making and breaking, creating opportunities with them. So I love that I was part of the journey. I would never say that I was the end all be all for anyone, in a good way or hopefully not in a bad way.
Yep, yep.
But what an opportunity to be a part of 18 to 22 years old. I mean, it is. such a great time in life where you learn so much, and it's not easy. And there are hard days, but the beauty is the next day does come, and you've got just your best friends along for the ride with you. So, um, again, I think it is an amazing opportunity. I will never take the credit for doing too much. Though I just hope there were times I'm like I hope I don't screw it up, because the teams were so good, the players were so amazing. I wanted to make sure I was supporting them more so than doing anything else. So just that support level I thought was really important.
I think, I mean, there's so many things about the career that the program had while you at the helm, but I think starting with the championship teams as a player and as a coach, I mean, you kind of big part of going to UVA is the idea of trying to win a title and being there. And I know everyone's going to watch this has either been a part of it or want to be a part of it, and they want to be the best at whatever they're doing now. What kind of stands out to you about those teams that did have a chance to win it all? What were those kind of characteristics that may have set them kind of in a place to be able to seize the opportunity, from your standpoint?
Yeah, when I think through, it's been a while since I won a championship, so I have to go back. In my memory, it was 2004. I was really good at getting to a Final Four and getting to a championship game. I was never good at winning it. But I would say the years that we won, we always had the best player in the country. So we had either the Tewaaraton winner once that was established, or just the all around player of the year and Sherry Greer in particular back in the 90s. So you clearly need to have the best player, but then you need to have a supporting cast that's also incredibly talented. Leadership was always really important, and that camaraderie, that feeling that there's nothing we can't do together as a team, and that the person next to you is going to help you get through it. So, in those years that we really were exceptional, Amy Appelt was our Tewaaraton winner in 2004, one of the most amazing attackers ever to play. But her attack that she worked with was also phenomenal. And by the way, our defense was really, really good as well. So the ability to win a draw, I think that's your face off for the guys. The ability to make a stop, which Andrea Pfeiffer in 2004, Michelle Cusimano in 91 and 93. Both goalies were exceptional and on fire that weekend. And then we had the attackers that could put it in the back of the net. So, I think you peak at the right time. I think in May we tended to be pretty good, although we didn't always win. I almost remember the times that we came up short a little bit more vividly than the times that we won. So it's and truthfully, now that I'm, so that now that I'm out of it, there's so much more to it than winning. There's so many more things that I'm proud of than winning just an ACC championship and a national championship. Those are cool. That's what people want to talk about, but there's so much more to it than just those few games.
Yeah.
So I'm actually proud of the process and of the journey. I'm proud of our failures as much as I am proud of our successes. I think every one of those failures helped us succeed the next time out. So that's the full cycle. And clearly we went through a lot more than just playing lacrosse games. So, all of those little things really, I look back and I wouldn't have wanted to do it with anyone else, from my coaching staff to my training staff to the players to the families. It was just such an incredible opportunity for so many years.
Yeah. And one thing that resonates with me is the consistency of the program you had for such a long period of time. And Coach Stars used to always scream in the games or practice and dazzle me with your consistency. He was always most impressed by those that can be consistent in all facets of the right things to be consistent in.
Right.
And from your guys, your program, the consistency to get to the playoffs every year, to get it being a chance to compete at the highest level. And I'm sure you'll now copy and paste a lot of things you said about what you're doing with One Love in the program, but what were, from your assessment, the keys to being that consistent of a program for such a long period of time?
Well, I think we always focused on doing the little things, on and off a field, in and out of season, in a classroom as much as it was on a field. I think we always, I don't know. I mean, we made it fun. We tried not to make anything so heavy that it was going to get in our way of being able to be successful. And we just had incredible buy-in. I do think as the streak of all the NCAA tournaments started to build and build, I think the players felt a little more pressure to that.
Yep.
There was a couple of years that it was like a little bit dicey, and after we made it, the girls would say, "Oh my gosh, like we didn't want to ruin your streak," and I'm like, for not one second did I look at it as my streak. Not it didn't even dawn on me that there was this streak that anybody else was even aware of. And I felt badly that they felt this pressure. And I'm like, you guys just
Yep.
play and play
Yep.
for each other and play with each other, and you've got nothing to worry about. But the teamwork, just building a team is, I think, the most fun part. And really seeing what people have inside of them, and really when you watch somebody realize how much they can do, it's a really pretty thing. So I think we did a really good job of getting a lot out of everybody,
Yep.
and probably even the most out of some of them, which really just helped put us in a position that we got better every week, that we could grind and we could be successful. We could grind and we may lose, but we always had some takeaways that we could focus on.
Yep.
That process was always important, and we try not to stress the games too much, although I'm sure even though coaches didn't really put the pressure on, I know the players did. I think the onset of social media made it a
Yep.
little bit harder to keep things kind of this one game is the same as the next game,
Yep.
but that was all part of it, and that was all part of the excitement as well, I suppose.
Yeah, everything changes and it all has a place, but I do feel very grateful not to have gone to college with an iPhone,
Oh, yeah.
or we had Facebook on desktop, but no iPhones. I didn't get an iPhone until after college, which is
Oh,
dating me, which is crazy, but it's such a blessing because I think being present is like the greatest thing you could be in life. And it was much easier back then to be present when you didn't have an iPhone or social media. It just added such a heightened pressure point on the day-to-day
yeah.
process rather than kind of being in it a little bit more and seeing a lot of the good that's happening rather than kind of popping right into the madness.
Right, absolutely. I mean, and we always joke, people in my age group were like, "Thank God there weren't cell phones when we were in college." We weren't always, yeah, who knows what we would have taken pictures of at the time. So we're like, well, it's probably a good thing. But I do feel like it's a huge responsibility to have this social media and these accounts, and to what are you posting, what are you following, that kind of stuff. It really does kind of change it could change how you feel day to day. So I am glad we didn't have that, but I'm hoping the kids are learning how to manage.
Yeah. Well, I want to kind of bottle up, I guess, this first part, which would just be kind of talking about you and UVA and the journey. And I guess what message, hopefully this goes out to all the women's alumni and men's alumni. And I know you're very engaged, and we'll keep talking about UVA probably on the more of the back half of this. But what would, after everything you've been through at UVA and the experiences you've had, what would be kind of your message to everyone if everyone's getting a chance to listen to this and watch this and hear from you, and I'm sure they have a bunch of times before, but what would be your message to them with just being a part of UVA and staying involved in this program and kind of leaning in as we kind of transition and now there's new leadership on top of everything that you and Gene and everyone else have built for such a long period of time?
Yeah, I mean, I would say first, thank you to everyone that has come through Virginia, worn the uniform, and done so much for me and for the coaches and for the team, for the university, the athletic department. Even though everyone was here for anywhere from 4 to, I guess, a couple people for 6 years, depending on redshirt years, your time and impact at Virginia and on the families is so much longer than your eligibility will ever be. I look back when, I have 3 kids. They're now 20, 21, and 24, which is crazy. But when I started coaching, I didn't have any kids. And I look at who my kids are today, and I see parts of my players, the alumni, in all of them, and their drive, and in their compassion, and their love for lacrosse and for being on a team. So I would say even though I had most players for just 4 years, some again for 5 and 6, their impact is goes so far beyond all of those years. And it's the same thing now. Like, so I would love for all the alumni, to continue to embrace Virginia lacrosse. It was always more than about. It's not about one person. It's about the family of Virginia lacrosse. Whoever is lucky enough to carry the torch should be lucky enough to have everyone's support. And I think people have done a nice job rallying around Sonia, and Sonia's certainly done a great job, leading the team, and has won a bunch of big games already. So it's exciting to see what she can continue to create. But again, my biggest message is just a huge thank you. And once you become a who, you're always a who. So we would hope that everybody always stays in touch and rallies to games when you can. And if you can't be there, to follow along and to continue to support. I think college athletics is in an interesting time.
Yep.
There's a lot of uncertainty, but what we do know is that funding is going to be really important. So not only support in the stands and support on social media and pumping kids up and giving them your best, I think it's going to be really important to make sure that we can still offer a great quality product in Virginia lacrosse. I think that it's going to get harder as things move along with the different lawsuits and the different structures in place. But I'm incredibly proud of our alumni, how successful everyone has been. And just their ability to contribute in so many ways, in so many different ways. Again, it's just amazing gratitude for who everybody is, and who they've become.
Yeah, it's very special. And I talking to people about my new role as director of VLAN, I'm like, I think it's the coolest job in the world because I just get to connect with people like yourself and Coach Sargent, but then all my best friends, and then just this unbelievable cast of really special people. And I think at the end of the day, like UVA as a whole attracts a certain person that I believe is a very thoughtful, well-rounded person that cares about the world, cares about each other, wants to make a difference, wants to do well, and holds themselves to a certain standard. And I'm so blessed to have been a part of it, but also to be able to connect with so many people. And the more people, if Amy Apol, for instance, and getting close with her and connecting with her, you're like, get off the phone. You're like, that was just an amazing person. And
Yeah.
then you talk to the next person, my best friend, still Stanwood from UVA. You're like, that's the nicest person I ever met. It's like, you just like, it's this unbelievable group of people. And I feel very blessed to be somewhat involved in getting everyone back in different forms together because I'm like, wait, when we're together, good things just happen by the nature of who we are as people. So just piggyback on you, just giving a shout out to the caliber of people that go to UVA, let alone inside the lacrosse programs.
Yeah, I mean, quality is not a shortage. I mean, there's so many just amazing people that share so passionately, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's a crazy segue, but it's a real segue, and one I know reading more about you that you've gotten much better at. But I do just want to talk about one of the most amazing people that has changed your life and now is your life in a big capacity, which is Yardley. And when you talk about an amazing person, and uh, she's at the very top of that list, and I knew her well enough to be being there for 2 years, and you know people ask me still to this day. I'm coaching high school lacrosse, and one of my players came up to me and be like, "Hey, did you know Yardley?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. She was she was on the women's team." And he's like, "Well, what do you remember about her?" And my answer was she was an angel. Really, I think from the her heart and her energy and her smile and her just love for people in her world. She was the epitome of, I think, like Virginia lacrosse, right? That type of person. So I just wanted to start as we talk more about One Love and the work you're doing, but I wanted to make clear like this is all based off of one of the best, nicest people you'd ever meet who's no longer here, but we can use her energy to change people's lives and make a difference, like you said before. So I just wanted to say that because Yardley Love is an angel from my perspective, the nicest, one of the nicest people, the epitome of UVA lacrosse. And I just wanted to give you kind of the mic just to talk about Yardley as a person and what you remember, obviously most about her spirit.
Yeah, and you said a lot of it. She was an angel that was not here near long enough. As beautiful as she was that caring and compassionate and giving. She always thought of other people long before she ever thought of herself. She was to me when I think of the word grace and what does it entail and encompass. And I picture Yardley like she was grace, and kindness. And when I think of the One Love Foundation, I think of strength, and trying to take the most profound loss, and turn something positive into it.
Yeah.
And so what I look at the foundation as strength and grit, and just power and positivity. And I think that resembles Sharon Love and Lexi Love, Yardley's mother and sister. And so with between the foundation, I think does a beautiful job of kind of never forgetting Yardley and really leaning in on that strength, and trying to take the most unthinkable day, and turn it into something positive that can save kids, that we'll never meet, families that we'll never know, and teams from the loss that we all, endured. I would say I was probably one of the first phone calls that morning on May 3rd. It'll be 15 years in May, which is also kind of crazy. I feel like On one hand, I feel like it was a million years ago. Sometimes I feel like it was yesterday, and then there's times I'm like, I can't even believe it happened. Um, but when the phone rang, my now 21-year-old who plays at Virginia was with me. We were emptying the dishwasher. It was like 6:15 in the morning, and Timmy looks at me and he said, 5:45. That's a funny time for a phone call. And I'm like, it is a funny time for a phone call, Timmy. I hope everybody is okay. And then from that phone call, I mean, everything changed. Um,
Yeah.
Everything changed, and I think, when in talking to the players on both teams and going through the trial and just, learning more stories, you realize how many warning signs we just didn't even know were warning signs, how many red flags were waving that we just didn't even recognize that they were signaling danger, and so what we try to do at the foundation, without scaring people, is raise the awareness of, "Hey, relationship abuse is really real. Your most prevalent, most dangerous time in life is between the ages of 16 and 22, which on one hand is like shocking because you think you have no bills, you have no stresses, you have no kids, you like what could possibly bring you to your knees? But the answer is immaturity and the immediacy that we've all come accustomed to. If we want it, we get it. We if this is something that we've wanted to do in our life or have in our life, we've usually been able to find it 24 hours a day with internet and everything else. And so it does make sense that younger kids and really mature relationships don't have the tools to handle them. So what we're
Yep.
trying to do is we have 10 signs that we've created, that we've researched and we've measured the impact for. 10 signs that really are words that are behaviors, the behaviors to pay attention to not give excuses to. I love when I get to meet with athletes because we talk about accountability all the time. And accountability applies to your relationships as well, which, by the way, are not competitive. So, the whole mindset of you're better, you're stronger, you take it because you want it and you're never giving it back. And I'm going to go down your throat and it's not happening in my house and not today and not ever. Like that's great for a field, but please don't ever consider that healthy or acceptable to bring into a relationship. And whether that's a friendship or an intimate partner. So really trying to differentiate between that mindset and off a field. And I know growing up, your parents are always like, "You're so much more than an athlete," but I think that that is really what you're talking about. Like you are so much more. You can't be an athlete when you're in a relationship, and where you're a classmate or a dorm mate or whatnot. So you just need to really make sure that you've got a level of awareness and accountability, so that when you do make a mistake, when you don't act the right way, you can recognize it because you know what to look for, and you can pull it back and be accountable and say, "I'm really sorry. I just did whatever it was." So we have these behaviors. We give it language and tools so that then we teach the kids, 11 to 24-year-olds, how to set some boundaries, how to say, "Hey, you know what? That was great last night, but I don't want to do that again tonight." Or, "Hey, I really care about you, but I'm going to go hang out with my other friends," and really making it normal to have boundary setting conversations that are acceptable, that are understood, and that happen from the very beginning, so that you don't fall in love and then fall into an abusive spot. We really want to help put some guardrails. It's like learning how to bowl when you're a kid. Just put the guardrails up so you have a chance of keeping it out of the gutter.
Yeah. It's crazy just like getting goosebumps and like I'm sure you still feel it too when you kind of go back into that and you just think about it, it's just still just and just unbelievable. Like the whole thing is just really just but the point being like how the impact Yardley still makes in people's lives and how many lives she does save and change. And that was her to the to like the key, which is great. Like thinking about. Um, but it's just thinking in my little world, I've told you I've been coaching high school boys in a program that needed some work and rough around the edges, good group of boys, but never really been given direction and clarity and kind of structure and consistency and maybe a little bit of a firm handshake and eye contact and some for obvious reasons now. I did a few rules for the program and none of them are about playing on the field. And the number one rule, which is just crazy to talk to you about, was to respect women.
Oh, I love that
That
though.
was number one rule.
Thank
And it's crazy to think like because I kept saying that and I wrote the rules and I didn't tell the boy. I said, here are the rules of the program. It's respect women, treat your parents with respect, and then it's like wear your IDs in school, like all these little things. But it's funny thinking why I wrote that. And I wrote that because
Yardley.
that situation and being there and seeing that and telling the boys like, hey, this is if you can do that, then most things in life will kind of work themselves out. If your starting point is being respectful to everyone, but having the courage to be respectful to women. Because that I'm kind of teaching the boys like, self control and confidence, communication, accountability, structure, and there's that human nature there that is that you got to fight against it to have control and to be in control and to respect other people, let alone women. So it's just crazy to think that her journey, Yardley, continues to make an impact. I'm in Stewart, Florida, coaching at Martin County High School, a bunch of boys, and Yardley's on the field with us there. It's pretty special to think about that.
I mean, I think she was that powerful, and I think,
Yeah,
when you think through, like, fate and was she here so that we would all learn from her? And at some level, maybe, but I mean, I sure wish we had a different way of learning, to be honest with you. I would do anything to go back to the spring of 2010
yeah.
and have some conversations and protect her. But since we can't go back, our only way is forward, and I think, I think Yardley is 100% in your heart and in your mind as you're setting those rules, which will never
Good.
take your guys to the wrong place. It's so
I
important.
remember
Thank
I
you.
read that out loud, and everyone, even the coach, was like, "What is that?" And then I've been communicating with that more. And I told the boys yesterday that I'd be speaking with you and your role and what you're doing and the work you're doing. So it's kind of just that continual ripple effect. But just for those that maybe are excited and have always heard about One Love and want to learn more as you kind of navigate this new chapter of One Love with your role, what are ways people can get involved? How can they make a difference? What are action items that people listening to this can take away and actually get involved with what you're doing?
Yeah, I love it. So we have a couple of pillars at One Love. So raising awareness is huge, and it's awareness of the foundation and of the work we're doing, and of the prevalence of relationship abuse. So over 1 in 3 women will be in an abusive relationship in their lifetime, and abuse is like control, where one person has control over the other. It could be emotional, it could be physical, it could be financial. The abuse comes in a lot of shapes, but it's basically that control, that dominance of one over the other. But 1 in 3 men will be in an abusive relationship. So the odds for the guys are not that much better for the girls. It's not always as physically threatening as what the women may feel. But relationship abuse lives in every community. Here we're thinking it doesn't happen at Virginia. We've got our whole life where all these kids are about to graduate. But I would say it happens in every community. And if you close your eyes and you think of like who's in an abusive relationship, you're probably right in your mind, but then you need to open your eyes and look at the people around you because it could be anyone. Um, so raising awareness is important. We play a lot of One Love games. So we've got these game day t-shirts. The back slogan is trust your gut. And then we have our website, joinonelove.org under it, just trying to drive people to our website so they can learn. They can learn the 10 signs, they can have conversations, they can learn from survivors, they can learn. There's so much content on our website, it's almost overwhelming, but there's so much great stuff that you can find. The other way that you can get involved is you can train to become a facilitator. We've got about 55,000 trained facilitators. They're not all active, I wish they were, but
I
they
saw
really
that.
are the
Yep.
community leaders that then hold these conversations, bring our workshops. We have 16 different workshops, all age appropriate for 11-year-olds all the way through college. So identify what group you have access to. For you, it would be like your high school boys team. We could bring out you could train remotely, asynchronously, to being able to bring this workshop to your players. So it could be on a day off. It could be, you plan B when it's like snowing or there's a storm and you can't get on a field.
Yep.
You could host a workshop and have a conversation with your players. So training to be a facilitator would be amazing.
Yep.
Leveraging the communities and the groups that you talk to and that you touch, bringing that education there. We measure our success. And one of the ways we do is by how many students have we educated. So right now we're about 3.3 million over time. We would really love to get to 6 million in the next couple of years. So the more community leaders and facilitators that are having these conversations are great. If you're a doctor, you can put the 10 signs in your waiting room. Every parent is reading everything, as well as the kids that are sitting and waiting for shots and for visits. Just the power of suggestion of these signs can go a really, really long way as well. Teachers can bring it to the classroom. Doesn't matter what subject you teach. You could do Romeo and Juliet. You could be a language arts teacher, and you could bring our 10 signs conversations in terms of what behaviors did you notice in these main characters. There's
Yep.
so many ways that you can bring it. So really helping us educate by being a facilitator and bringing it to your communities. Fundraising is huge. So all of our resources are free and accessible, but it is certainly not free and accessible to do what we do. So we do it's not free to do what we do. So we're always looking for corporate sponsors, different funders, family foundations, anyone that can help us move the needle to making sure that we have a sustainable future with our
Yep.
sustainable structures that we're drilling down on to make sure that we will always be able to service all of our users on the website, all of our facilitators, and all the students as well.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess segueing a little bit back to now, I guess maybe merging both of them would be, obviously we were talking before we started the Zoom about all the events that One Love is involved with and the Corrigan sports this year. I know obviously UVA on both sides is very involved with One Love. So can you just talk about those relationships and the impact it's making in college lacrosse and ways for people to go support a game that One Love's either sponsoring or sponsored for?
Yeah, so Corrigan Sports is hosting 4 different college games in their College Lacrosse Live segment this spring. So it's 3 on the on the men's side, 1 on the women's side. Virginia, I love, will have played. They just played Towson in their first one out in Houston. Virginia women will play Maryland at NDP, which is Yardley's high school in Baltimore, Notre Dame Prep. And then there's another couple of games, one out in Dallas coming up next weekend, and then in Long Island. But they really help us raise awareness with just the visibility on TV, and when people buy tickets, they have an option of donating to One Love on top of it. So Corrigan Sports keeps the lion's share, but we get the donation portion of it, and we get the ability to raise awareness of the foundation and of the work we're doing. There will be probably 300 other high school and college lacrosse One Love games, and it's not only in lacrosse. So there's a couple of baseball teams that are playing, a couple of track athletes. A few high schools will do a whole day of One Love, where all of their home teams will be playing for One Love. So you don't have to wait for Corrigan sports. You don't have to wait for a lacrosse season. You could be a fall, winter, any season, any sport. Again, we have like One Love game day T-shirts. So the more people that buy them, we get a little bit of money towards our fundraising efforts, but we get great visibility. And so when kids wear them on their warm up or on their sideline, and the coaches, and then around town, it just drives people to recognizing our brand, our One Love brand, which is a great logo. It's the heart, actually, the crisscross is the lacrosse net in the back, which I didn't realize until about 2 years ago. But it's certainly it is known as a lacrosse foundation. It certainly was born from lacrosse. But it is much, much bigger than lacrosse. But again, like we were saying earlier, lacrosse has been a huge vehicle to our success. And it's the world I certainly still swim in and live in. So, I do count on and lean on the lacrosse world pretty hard. So I just appreciate everyone
Yep.
taking my calls and having the conversations and supporting in whatever way they can.
Yeah. And now I'm like brainstorming with you, but just give me in the weeds because I think low hanging fruit would be someone like myself who's coaching young men who
Mhm.
talks about this stuff to actually kind of clean it up on the back end with some actual structure. And so I could reach out to you or go on the One Love website and I could sign up to be you would
Facilitator.
a
So we train.
facilitator, and now I would have that. So can you walk us through that process? Because that seems like a no-brainer for the majority of alumni to be signed up in any capacity, because you could be facilitating in any different spectrum that any almost anything, right? So
I mean, it could be your kid's classroom. It could be a classroom you're a part of, a team you're coaching. It could be your Sunday school group that you're working with. So what you would do is you go to our website, joinonelove.org.
yep,
There's a button called the Education Center. You're going to hit that button. You're going to register to have an account, which basically gives us your name and your email address. We do track who comes to our website, and we know what you're using and where what you're spending your time looking at, so that we know what is the popular material. So it's all tracked on the back end. But then you would train to become a facilitator. So there's a couple of 5 to 15 minute classes to make sure that you understand the responsibility to it. The expectation is not that you become an expert, but that you just be care invested, and
yep,
that you are just going to be willing to learn. So we want to make sure the workshops are inclusive, and that they're safe spaces. So we give you a couple of quick tips of how do you set it up. And then there's 16 different workshops, and they're film-based workshops.
yep,
So once you have your login and you have this really simple training, then you can go and you can train on the different workshops that resonate with the age group that you work with. And we train you. You watch the film. We train you with, this is how you'd set up a workshop. These are the questions that you can ask. And by the way, they're all open-ended questions. So the students in the discussion really carry the day. You could ask 5 questions, and the conversation could last for about 45 minutes to an hour. So this is not like, what do I do if it's silent? It's almost a how do you tie it off when you need to get to the next question. So we preload PowerPoints for you, so you just kind of pop it up and you present, and it's as easy as you can. It's easier than you would think. Although the first time, like learning all the ropes and the PowerPoints here and the discussion guide is here, like just getting you up to speed is a little bit more intimidating than actually pulling it off. And once you've done one, it's so easy to do your second, third, and fourth. And by five, you're like an expert.
Yep. Well, you can consider the Martin County Tigers.
Um,
We'll do a workshop. We'll sign up. It no
so
brainer. And sorry, we haven't done it before, but the rule is there now. My point is like the talking is one thing, which is important, but the walk it is really important. And I think when you're talking about kind of you have to do so much as a coach now, like CPR training, this training, that training, and a lot of times you'd be like, it's a lot signing up, and like I'm just trying to coach. But you're when you take a step back, you're like the worst case scenario here is legitimately the worst case scenario, right? And that's the experience of Yardley and the birth of One Love, which was the worst case scenario happened.
right.
And as a coach and someone that's responsible for men and others that are listening for women and their future in a capacity, like your job is to prevent the worst case scenario through using sport as a vehicle to teach life
Right.
habits to not have those. So calling myself out and anyone else just be like, hey, like get this done, get it on your team's radar, do it because it's all fun and games until you actually need the CPR equipment when there's a kid who's dying on the field, right? So like,
And if somebody said, if you spend 1 hour, you'll impact countless lives, wouldn't you sign up like right now to spend 1 hour to impact and to help people?
yep,
And it's like the reward is so great. And the beauty, if you're working with college kids, even older high school kids, they could actually train to become the facilitators. The Virginia men and women just hosted their workshop on Tuesday of this week. So they have for years, really since the inception of our prevention education at One Love, while I was a coach, we always brought education to the teams. And we tended after the first year, we really did it with the men's program because they are each other's eyes and support when people are out. They know more of what's going on in each other's lives than any other group. So very early on, Dom Stargia and I just were like, well, let's do it together. And then when Lars came, we were like, we started even a welcome picnic together.
yep,
Our guys and girls were going to meet each other as soon as we weren't together. So we're like, why not give them a healthy starting point?
yep,
Why not just kind of put some guardrails on it from the very beginning and talk about, the relationships and how important it is to have each other's back,
yep,
and to never take it for granted. So it makes a huge difference. But again, the college players, they actually hosted that workshop. So the coaches didn't even have to worry about anything other than slating an hour that the teams were going to be together. So it's your best spent hour. I would clearly sitting where I sit. But even before that, I would say it's 100% worth it. Worst case scenario, people are like, "Oh, I learned something."
yep,
Best case scenario, and often, people are like, "You know what? I'm gonna be better. I'm gonna say something. I know how to say something. I know how to help my friend. I know how to stand up for myself. I now know what I'm looking at." So it's that light bulb does go off for a lot of kids.
yeah. I like that the safe place idea to bring people together, and even in high school, there's you got to do a better job. Seems like everyone's busy and running around. You like gotta do a good job getting people together early and saying, "Hey, this is what these relationships are about. This is how to do it." Like a safer place rather than the first week of college when everyone's running around and you
Right,
know
and
there's a lot
and
going on.
relationships will make or break your experiences and your opportunities more than anything else. It really is at the core of everybody's next step, and if it's a healthy one, my gosh, you can do just about anything. But if it's unhealthy, it's really isolating, it's really scary. It's like a dead end, pretty quickly. So, my gosh, just, like, help kids understand what it is that they're creating, what they're living in, how they can make it better, and in some cases, like, know when they have to say, "You know what? This isn't for me." You can end even a healthy relationship if it doesn't have to be abusive to say, "I don't wanna be in here." It could
Yep,
be unhealthy, it could be something that you just aren't even into, but how do you end it in a good way
yep,
so that the next the next step can happen. So it helps at so many different levels.
Yeah. Yeah. At the core of everything is relationships and how to manage relationships better. We all need help on, and it's not easy. And you're offering tools that help you do that in every facet of life, let alone a more intimate relationship. I
And
do.
we've measured for 11 to 24, and that's our research, but by all means, I it would apply to me, and I'm well beyond 24 at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we had to bookend it, but it's certainly applicable, beyond the above below 11 and beyond 24.
Yeah. Well, I'll wrap this section up and then just a few more minutes of maybe some rapid fire if you're okay with it. But first of all, it's so great to spend time with you more, and thank you for the time here, and just shout out to who you are as a person, everything you've done and everything you are doing. You've lived a life of serving others and making a difference. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
everything.
Thank you.
All right, so I did this with actually, I want to ask a bigger picture, but I did the similar thing with Coach Sarge a few weeks ago, and I think women's lacrosse is in an interesting spot. Women's sports seems to be growing and building momentum and getting more limelight and more accolades and more opportunity. The birth of the WLL, the Women's Lacrosse League, for those that aren't aware, is the sister program of the PLL, the Premier Lacrosse League, which has just come to fruition. So I know you're living in a different world, but still very much engaged in the women's side of things. How do you feel about the game? Where are things going? How do you see things continue to grow? I mean, it's a huge time for lacrosse with the Olympics coming up in 2028. There's just a lot going on in this space. So, how do you kind of digest it, and how do you feel about where things are with the game?
I mean, the growth has been amazing, and it has been a slow growth really for the last probably 20 years. So I feel like we exploded in the last 6 to 8 years with over 130 D1 programs. We've got like over 350 D2s and D3s. I mean, I've always considered it an opportunity sport on the women's side, much more so than on the men's side, just by virtue of how many programs we have. I do a lot of local lacrosse for little kids. I run a Cavalier lacrosse league for kindergarten to fourth graders. In the spring on Sundays, they are so cute. And it's all fundamentals. But I look at them and I'm like, these are the kids who are going to go and play in college. And for sure, we started this, 15, 16 years ago. And the first generation, they're playing at Stanford, they're playing at Penn, they're at Virginia, they're at Tech, they're playing in college, and it is so fun to know that these little kids could go there because there's going to be opportunity if they love it, they want to pursue it. So I think it's exploded with opportunity. I think the women's professional league is going to be great. We have had professional leagues for women for probably the last, I'd say, 8 to 10 years. So for us to now be joining the PLL, I think is perfect because it's not starting from scratch. We're actually starting with a really solid product where people consider themselves professional athletes during the summer. And so there's going to be an explosion there as well because people have been gearing up for what comes next. What comes next? AU did an amazing job over the last few years in particular. So that league is gone now. All these players are going to step in. You combine that with the Olympics in LA. I do wish it was really our game. I wish it wasn't sixes. But you know what? It's lacrosse in the Olympics. So at some level, I think we just need to honor it. I think my biggest fear is what happens with all this NIL stuff. What happens if departments get smaller? What happens if you really need to stand alone to stay alive? That makes me nervous because we're in such a great spot. We've so slowly nurtured the players, and the coaches have gotten better, and technology has really helped. And young girls are growing up thinking I could play pro, I could play in the Olympics, and I think just that dream helps elevate everything else. So the games have been tight. They've been exciting. Clearly on the women's side, Carolina and BC are the teams to beat. But I think just about anybody else, I mean, well, they could be beaten as well, but I think it's anyone's game. So it's been fun. Virginia has certainly done a really, really nice job. They've had a couple of blips. But to me, those are learning opportunities, and they've got a lot of season to be able to right that ship. And I know they have the coaches and the guns to be able to get it done.
Yeah, that's well said. I'll make a point. One more question. We'll get you out of here. Being in Florida, seeing lacrosse going to field and seeing rows and rows and rows of women playing lacrosse, young ladies playing lacrosse in Florida, and men as well. You can just feel it and hear it where parents are really excited about the sport, that they see the path. I think on the men's side, at least, like it's got the highest percentage of transition from high school to potentially be playing in college. Like 13 point something percent of high school players can go on to college. Like it's all there for the taking. So I just want to double down on the excitement of lacrosse and seeing field after field of young ladies playing lacrosse and loving it, and their parents seeing it is amazing. But then you kind of think, all right, where's it go? And it's gotta hold on because there's so many young people that have a future in lacrosse. We just have to make sure we're protecting that future with all these moving pieces that are happening, and there's a lot of challenging pieces that lay ahead.
For sure. But if we can hold on and get through this next like 3 to 5 years, all of the kids who are playing that played that are in their 30s, they're going to become great coaches for these young girls. So I feel like our we're about to have an ecosystem where the players that loved it and believed in the game and have a great mindset and IQ for the game, they're about to help coach either their kids at rec or take a travel team or coach a high school or a college team. So for a long time, it was, the mom who's like, "Oh, well, I've never played before, but I'll coach," or the dad who's like, "I loved it when I played, but we're about to get
Yep.
experienced people come and they're going to be ready and they want to give back. I think that ecosystem is just about complete. So
Yeah.
really hope we make it through these next 3 to 5 years because I think lacrosse that we know today is going to only explode and get even better in the next 15 years if we can get through these next 3 to 5.
Yeah, really well said. And the last thing is I want to make everyone jealous because you are in one of the best places in the world, which is Charlottesville.
Yep,
People won't see this until after, but you are in Charlottesville. It's a doubleheader.
yep,
Men
yep,
play Maryland, women play Duke. Pound for pound, there's nowhere better in the world than
yep.
March in Charlottesville watching lacrosse. You're going to be at the games this weekend. Women's alumni kind of make everyone jealous with the vibes and the energy and how beautiful Charlottesville is right now, and pushing everyone to make sure. Because from my standpoint, it's like you got to donate your time and you got to donate your money to be involved and to support these programs. So, what's your pitch for people to get down to watch a game this spring in Charlottesville?
I mean, I've never run into the person that was disappointed they made the effort to come back. Everybody that comes back, they're like, "Oh, I love it. I can't believe it's been so long or that I almost didn't come." I would say bring your kids. Don't worry about asking your parents or in-laws to watch your babies. Bring your kids down, let them run around Klockner. That hill is still, it's where my kids grew up watching games. And I would watch them roll down the hill and do all kinds of things, but bring your kids to relive that hill experience. It is great energy. It's great lacrosse, which is clearly a huge part of it, but really to reconnect with all your friends and teammates, even the people you never played with, but just that the others that share the uniform, you can't go wrong. It is supposed to be low 70s and partly cloudy on Saturday. I can't promise Sunday's going to be great, but again, I've never met a person that was disappointed they made the effort. It is a great spot, and I think there's going to be obviously two great games, but then some good activities. The tailgate, from what I understand, since I am a parent of one of the
Yep.
men,
Yep.
it's a dual tailgate. So men's parents, women's parents are going to come together. We're going to support and feed all of the teams. And just make it just something that we can all appreciate that we're a part of. It is the opportunity of a lifetime. And the current parents put so much into their players and making sure that they feel how special it is, and they're excited to welcome the alumni back as well.
Yeah, I'm very grateful. I'm coaching high school tonight and then getting up to Charlottesville late tomorrow, and I couldn't be more excited. Life is good and a lot to be grateful for. So we'll wrap on that, and just I will go with Coach because I really only know you as Coach. So Coach, thank you once again for everything. I can't wait to give you a big hug in Charlottesville this weekend. Thank you for everything at UVA Lacrosse, and good luck to everything continued with One Love, and continuing to share Yardley spirit and continuing to make the world a better place. So thank you.
All right, I appreciate it, Wyatt. Thanks so much. Go Who's.